Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our council meeting. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing while Councilman Boland gives the invocation.
Lord, thank you for this opportunity to come here and to do the work of this town. I just pray for wisdom, for guidance, and I pray that you'll protect us all as the many of the workers that are out there working on the roads and all kinds of stuff that's going on. And I just pray your protection on them. And we thank you in your name. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Melanie, roll call.
Roll call. Councilmember Bolin.
Here.
Councilmember Colleton.
Here.
Councilmember Lang. Here. Councilmember Lassonde is absent. And Mayor Crowder.
Here. Okay, so we have a proclamation here. Tony Lindsay, would you come forward? So May is Building Safety Month, and we have a proclamation here. Whereas the International Code Council has proclaimed the month of May 2025 as Building Safety Month, and whereas the town of Paradise is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and essential role our homes, buildings, and infrastructure play, both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of the vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a nonprofit that brings together local, state, territorial, tribal, and federal officials who are experts in the built environment to create and implement the highest quality codes and standards to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, play, and whereas these modern building codes and standards include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildland fire, floods, and earthquakes, and whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our code officials who assure us of safe, substantial, and affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. And whereas Game On, the theme for Building Safety Month 2025, encourages us all to get involved and raise awareness about building safety on a personal, local, and global scale. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local, state, tribal, territorial, and federal building safety and the fire prevention departments in protecting lives and properties. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Council of the Town of Paradise hereby proclaims the month of May 2025 and annually thereafter as Building Safety Month. Be it further resolved that the Town Council calls upon the Town of Paradise residents to join us in encouraging our citizens to join us as we participate in Building Safety Month activities. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the Town of Paradise to be affixed hereto this 13th day of May 2025.
Pictures. Smile, Tony.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Already been a lengthy meeting. Campfire recovery updates. Colette Curtis, Recovery and Economic Development Director. Any questions for Colette? Okay, hearing none. Mark Maddox, Public Works Director, Town Engineer, Infrastructure Updates. Any questions for Mark? Okay. Tony Lindsay, CDD, Building and Code Enforcement. Any updates or any questions for Tony? Okay, made up some time there. Paradise Sewer Project update. Mark Maddox.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure to provide our regular update here on the agenda about the status of the Paradise Sewer Project. Here in the agenda item, you can see our update in the last month includes hosting 11 individual meetings with wastewater technology vendors and community members interested in the sewer project. We've also made progress on the project alternatives analysis by confirming the list of alternatives for analysis. We met with Town Council Sewer Project Ad Hoc Committee and we discussed the project status and key decisions ahead. We had a meeting with the Division of Financial Assistance and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to discuss grant funding opportunities for the sewer project, as well as continuing our support in finding and evaluating all project funding options. Here in the next month, we plan to continue to meet with the Regional Water Quality Control Board staff to confirm anticipated requirements for treated wastewater effluent discharge. We are going to progress the alternatives analysis and begin developing a complete collection to dispersal cost and estimate for each alternative. And then one of our goals for the ad hoc committee meeting is to assemble a list of sites to tour where we've seen different technologies being presented to us, and we want to go get our hands dirty, hopefully not too dirty, at some of these treatment facilities and see how our assessment is of how it's going, lessons learned and their implementation, community impacts, and so on. So that's really exciting. Also, I want to mention some updates to the ParadiseSewer.com website. So if you go to ParadiseSewer.com, you'll see a new banner in the upper right-hand corner for project updates. You can click here in the middle or over here on the right, and that'll take you to a spot where we'll continue to provide these monthly project updates similar to what I just presented to the council here this evening. So if you can't join us every second Tuesday of the month for this verbal report, you can find out our project progress here. Also, you'll see some updated descriptions about the project and our process getting through the alternatives analysis, the core mission on why we're doing this project. But really importantly too, here a revised project schedule, which shows our previous efforts dovetailing nicely here into the alternatives analysis in 2025. Again, you can kind of see the we are here moment, and then we have a schedule for a project alternative selection by the Paradise Town Council here at the August meeting here this summer. So with that, we look ahead to future activities that are all dependent upon that decision, including supplemental environmental impact reports, permitting, right-of-way design, and then of course construction. So if you're looking for any information for the sewer project, you're always welcome to come here to Town Hall, email us, contact us, call us, or come to these meetings. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions the council might have on this month's update.
Questions? Any cards, Melanie?
Yes. My first card is from Al McGrin.
Good evening, Council. It's a pleasure to see you all here tonight. If I may, Mark, will you post a copy of your one-page staff report on the screen so we can dialogue about the contents which you just read verbally for the benefit of the full council and the audience? Thank you. Here's my question primarily. Mark indicated to you council members tonight that as part of the progress during this past month that they've confirmed a list of alternative projects. It'd be really nice and more detailed clarification on my behalf as well as the audience if you could tell us what that list consists of at this point in time that you've confirmed. In other words, how many project alternatives, and it's not only how many, but what are those types of alternatives so that we can dialogue with you in a more informed manner. And hopefully the entire council knows what that list is, because it's obviously your report, it's been confirmed, so that tells me it potentially exists, that type of thing. So that would be very helpful if we could get that. if you can't provide it tonight, maybe you can post it on the website that you just indicated earlier that we can look at later
Yeah.
as citizens. It'd just be helpful.
I'd be glad to address that. Thanks, Al. So as far as the project alternatives list that we're talking about is confirming all of the steps between collection to dispersal and potential beneficial reuse. Right now, no site has been selected for alternative
Understood. Right.
analysis. No collection service area has been decided. Those are still being developed and then will ultimately be presented to the ad hoc committee meeting and then ultimately brought back for the council and the community for discussion and evaluating the pros and cons of each of those. But in concept, you can look at from the collection side, the difference between a step collection system and a gravity system.
Right.
When you look at treatment, you can look at the different options in secondary treatment, primarily being trickling filters, lagoons, constructed wetlands, and so on. And a membrane bioreactor with tertiary treatment is also an option for treatment. And then as far as dispersal, we're looking at either surface water discharge or land application discharge. And then depending on the type of treatment we choose and looking for beneficial reuse, there's options for that dispersal
Right.
on top of that. So if you look at all of those different options, when we're talking about a list of alternatives, is the different permutations from start to finish, toilet to dispersal, right? There's about 23, 24 different options within that list.
And
So-
that's my point of concern. Hopefully, within the next month, you'll have that weeded down to a much smaller list of alternatives, because it's extremely important for your citizens to understand that as you move forward in this process. And hopefully you can do that within the next month. I realize this is a lot of work that you and the team has to do, as well as the ad hoc committee. And I don't know if the ad hoc committee's given you any direction on this, what you presented them thus far or not. Maybe it's still too early in the process.
Yeah, it's too early in the process. We're in that effort right now, and the difference between today and project selection August is a lot of the work you're describing right now.
Right.
That's
Okay.
going to occur.
Another thing I just wanted to share this evening for the council's benefit, and this is kind of a related subject, depending upon what you finalize in terms of a recommended preferred alternative, I hope at the same time you have legal counsel look at that in the context of whether or not the prior EIR, the program EIR that was done, can be modified, as you will, for that alternative in such a way that it only involves what's called an addendum. It may or may not be legally doable, I don't know. Or if there's enough evidence to warrant that. If not, you're going to have to do a supplemental EIR, which is what tentatively is shown on your progress sheet. But that remains to be seen, depending upon what you recommend and you eventually adopt as the preferred alternative. And the reason I say that is because when you start having interaction with the Water Quality Control Board staff, they may weigh in on that for you too, and they may or may not say there's enough evidence for you to do an addendum. I can't guarantee that. I'm just saying keep that in mind as you get further down in this path. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Al.
Any other cards?
Yes, next card is from Cliff Jacobson.
Good evening, council, mayor. I had a really good meeting with Clint Snyder and David Durrett of the Water Board this morning. Melissa and I met with them. And specifically, I had sent them the white paper that we had given a lot of individuals on the one of the options for a wastewater system. And more than that, a complete recovery system that included recycled water and fire protection as a whole. And we talked about a lot of things over a period of an hour, and I've got some takeaways I just kind of want to read just for the benefit of everybody. So they told me that the EIR could be amended to include a new treatment facility, but it was their thoughts and understanding that because a gravity sewer system was far more injurious to the environment than a simple step system would be, that if that was the project path that you chose, that they felt that that portion of the EIR for collection would be okay, and you would have to amend or addend the EIR to include the processing and recycling. So, and again, I don't know if legal counsel can agree with that or not, but that was the comment that was made to me by Clint Snyder from the Water Board. They had no objections with the Ripley white paper. In fact, Clint said there were some areas of the plan that he thought were great ideas, such as recycling and fire suppression. They also said that, funding is a key. Funding options may be open through alternative treatment programs, including water reuse and fire protection, which could maybe open the door to funding that we wouldn't currently have if we were just going to do wastewater. They also said a phased approach, including expansive build-out plan, is recommended. And they said the town needs to get something in the ground. He emphasized that about 3 times. He said, don't wait for funding to do the total project, or the costs are going to spiral out of control like they've already done. Get the plan, build it in phases, but get it going and get something in the ground. That was a recommendation, and the sooner the better. They were on board with PID's involvement and understand that without PID, a separate sewer district may need to be formed. But with PID, because PID already has the capability of running that, there's no sewer district needed. And that would, according to them, it would be a major stumbling block. It would slow things down. So it was a real positive meeting, and I thank them for their time, and hopefully this information is helpful to you guys going forward. Thank you.
I have no other cards.
Well, thank you. So let's move to item 2, consent calendar. One roll call vote is taken. Consent items considered to be routine business, does not call for a discussion. Anybody want to remove any item from the consent calendar?
Second.
Motion by Colleton, seconded by Bolin. Councilmember Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Colleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Lang?
Aye.
Councilmember Lasson is absent. Mayor Crowder?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, item 3, nothing removed. Item 4, public communication. For matters that are not on the council business agenda, speakers are allowed 3 minutes to address the council. Any cards, Melanie?
I have no cards.
Okay. Item 5, public hearings. For items that require a published legal notice and/or mailed service, public hearing. Staff report. And who do we have? Eric.
Chief Eric.
Good evening, Council. I don't have any updates on the previously presented annual military ordinance review that you all saw last month, and so unless there's any questions or comments from the public, this will be the second reading.
Any questions for the chief?
No.
I have no cards.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, chief. Any,
Public hearing. Looked at to open the public hearing.
so 6:18, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody wish to address this item?
Crickets.
Okay. So hearing none, 6:19, closed public hearing.
I move approval.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Bolin, seconded by Colleton. Councilmember Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Colleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Lang?
Aye.
Councilmember Lasson is absent. Mayor Crowder?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, item 6A, consider concurring with the recommendation of the Planning Commission. And this is, Melanie?
Yes. So the Planning Commission Interview Committee, consisting of Councilmember Lasson and Vice Mayor Colleton, met and interviewed 3 applicants and came back and would like to recommend Kate Anderson, for a 4-year term, and Sean Shingler to fill the existing vacancy of Commissioner Costa, which would end up being about a 2-year term. And they, I believe, are here if you have any questions for them.
Any questions from the council? Any cards?
I have no cards on this item.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move approval of the recommendations that we made.
I'll second.
Motion by Colleton, seconded by Crowder. Councilmember Bolin?
I'm going to abstain from this one.
Councilmember Colleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Lang?
Aye.
Councilmember Lasana is absent, and Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Item 6B, adopt resolution number 2025-30, a resolution of the town council, or the Town of Paradise approving and authorizing execution of the 2025 Butte County Community Wildfire Protection Plan. Chief Finney.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Jason Finney, CAL FIRE. So this evening before you, I have the rewrite of the 2025 CWPP, which is the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. So kind of fitting on the heels of Wildfire Protection Week that we had last week, we bring this to you for your consideration this evening. So with that, the CWPP is basically, it's a plan to reduce threats from wildfire throughout the communities. Not just Paradise, but all the unincorporated areas as well as other incorporated areas throughout the county. It was established by the Healthy Forest Act of 2002, and it must be collaborative, must identify priorities for hazardous fuels treatments, methods to protect communities at risk. It must identify measures to reduce structural ignitability, and it makes recommendations. These are not mandates. So all the, I know if you've read it, it's 450 pages, so it's a nice light read.
That was fun. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, it took a while. Yeah, it was a really comprehensive approach. The last one, I think it had the priorities in there, but this one really set the stage and talked about the fuels, the topography, the hazards that we all face in this county and throughout the North State. So again, these aren't mandates, these are just recommendations. So this document really just substantiates the measures that we're looking to put in place to protect these communities. So, and it assists for grant funding down the road. So just a brief history of Butte. The Butte CWPP was first adopted in 2006. This document also serves as the Butte Unit Fire Plan. It is reviewed annually, and it's updated every 5 years. So the last one was signed by Mayor Crowder in 2021. This one's before you as the rewrite in 2025. What's kind of special about this CWPP is there was a grant that was funded, and they rewrote the entire document. So really kind of took the old one, scratched it, and then developed this new document. What makes this CWPP unique is it's combined with the Butte Unit Fire Plan, and so it's a dual-purpose document that meets both the fire plan and the CWPP requirements, and it's a single consolidated planning and development effort. It's developed at the community level, but reviewed at the state level, and it's an annual fire plan review by the State Fire Board of Forestry. So it's approved at the state level once it is adopted here locally. Just a timeline here of how this document has kind of worked its way through the process, and we're right here at spring of 2025. Once this is signed by all the entities, it was recently signed by Oroville, I believe, Butte County Board of Supervisors, and it's going before Biggs tonight as well as the city of Chico. So as it works its way through, it'll go back to the Board of Forestry, and then when that's done, they'll develop a story map for the online users and the public to really go in there and kind of digest that document. And hopefully not have to spend 3 or 4 hours digging through the 450 pages. So it was a collaborative effort with stakeholder input. So it was not only Butte County, Town of Paradise, cities of Biggs, Gridley, Chico, and Oroville. You had the BCAG, which is the Butte County Collaborative Group with over 30 state and federal and local entities. There was quarterly meetings that were held from January 2024 through April of 25. And there was direct outreach to all collaborators. There was also a presentation that was made to the Paradise Chamber of Commerce, early in January, as well as the Chico Chamber of Commerce. So again, collaborative efforts and public input. There was a lot of outreach that was done over the last year and a half. Not a lot was actually garnered, as you can imagine. Very few showed up, but what was taken in was applied into the document. So keynote changes from the last CWPP was the collaboration. Really, we brought in all the stakeholders, sat down, got all these projects underneath one umbrella. The development of risk reduction recommendations, which is located in Chapter 6. The expanded data-driven hazard modeling, which is Chapter 8, Appendix B. Individual community assessments per the NFPA. Homeowner resources, which is in Appendix F. Post-fire resources, which is Appendix H, which we gave special credit to all the work that's been done up in the town of Paradise over the years. And then updated past, present, and planned fuel reduction projects, which is in Appendix I. So again, one of the things about this document is it's a living document. So as projects become available or we seek new projects, we can put them in the document. And again, those just help to strengthen those grants that are applied for to fund a lot of the projects. So the next steps is local approval, which I bring before you this evening. Presentations to the signatory entities, Board of Supervisors, the cities of Chico, Biggs, Greeley, Oroville, and the town of Paradise, as well as the Butte County Fire Safe Council. And then, like I said, once it reaches all those approvals, it'll go back to the Board of Forestry. Once the document is adopted and approved, it'll go and they'll develop the story map online for public viewing. So before you is the CWPP, and the recommendation for this evening is to approve the 2025 Community Wildfire Protection Plan and authorize the mayor to sign the resolution. One fix to the resolution on section 2, we had authorized the town manager. We'd like to change it to the mayor to be able to sign that document. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
For the benefit of everybody that didn't get to read that, there's nothing that's detrimental to Paradise in this
Absolutely.
report.
No, it just identifies projects that we'll be looking at completing. I mean, all the projects that are currently ongoing in the town and surrounding the town are all in there, as well as countywide. So as we know, fire doesn't really stick to boundaries, so even the projects
Seen
in
that.
Concow and, Forest Ranch, they all affect each other, so,
Right.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
And if anybody would like, I'd be happy to read the 450 pages to you now.
It's a light read.
Move to adjourn.
Any questions for the chief?
Good job.
I have no cards.
Okay.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Bolin,
Slow
seconded
down
by
there.
Colleton. Councilmember Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Colleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Lang?
Aye.
Councilmember Lassonde is absent. Mayor Crowder?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, chief.
Thank you. Good job.
Item 6C, provide staff with direction on desired changes, if any, to the Paradise Municipal Code relating to agriculture residential zoning. Susan?
Thank you, Mayor Crowder. Good evening, council. So this agenda item is regarding zoning and livestock amendments that we'd previously talked about in March. So just a quick history of why we're back here again at a public setting. There was a conversation in March between council and staff about different fuels reduction risk measures that we might be looking at. Some of it related to burning, some of it about zoning amendments that maybe we could make. And at the end of the conversation, the direction back to staff was to come up with some ideas about amendments to the zoning regs and the animal regulations to bring back for consideration to the council if it's something that you'd like to move forward with. And this was specifically in regards to the agricultural residential 3-acre minimum and 5-acre minimum zones, and more specifically about having livestock on those properties without a house on it. So the primary purpose of these amendments is about opening up additional opportunities for fuels management on these larger agricultural residential properties that do not have a house on it. So I want to be very clear that all of the amendments we're talking about tonight are not about properties that have a house, that already have livestock or might want livestock in the future. This is truly only about vacant land in the AR3, the AR5 that you want to go dump some livestock on and then walk away from. Is there any way that we can make that work? That's the conversation we're having tonight. So right now, this is a snapshot of what the zoning regs are today, and then some thoughts about what they could be amended to. So today in the AR3 and the AR5, livestock is permitted by right in those zones, but you have to have a house on site for the livestock to be there. Another thing that we talked about also was opening up the possibility of having ag buildings on those two zones as well. Right now, it's not permitted in any feature on those properties. So ideas that staff has about some amendments would be to remove the requirement for a residence on those zones, because that's the purpose of this, and in exchange, permit the livestock. That's how you can assign conditions for care and safety to them, but you can also revoke the use if they're not being cared for, if they're continually escaping or causing problems. You have a mechanism to stop that land use. And then also the possibility of bringing ag buildings to those two zones with a use permit. Again, that's bringing a non-residential land use into residential zones. That's why that entitlement is so high. And that's common for other uses in residential zones that are not residentially based. So some additional amendments that we were looking at were amending the definition of private stables. So those are already permitted by right in the AR3 and 5, but they're very specific to just horses, right? Keeping, breeding, raising of horses. Well, what if we change the the definition to be livestock in general? So those can be used as shelters for whatever livestock you might be putting on the property, and not just horses. So it opens those types of structures up for, more universal usage. And then another thing that staff is recommending, and this is really in response to council's concern about the care and safety of these animals when they're left on property without a caretaker, is adopting through a resolution an animal management plan. And that's really setting minimum standards for things such as fencing, the manure, the sheltering, the water, and the feeding. The fencing, like we talked about in March, is really important because PD, just in this calendar year alone, has already responded to 13 calls for livestock at large who've escaped wherever they were supposed to be, right? So we want to make sure that it's appropriate, what's going up. So in a snapshot, what do all of these amendments mean? With the administrative permit right now, there's 9 residential zones. 7 of those, everything except the AR3 and AR5, already have to get an administrative permit to keep livestock. So the idea would be if the property's vacant and you want to put livestock on it, you too would get an administrative permit. If your house is there, this doesn't pertain to you. Your animals are still permitted by right. You don't have to permit them separately. The review process. So administrative permits are not discretionary. I mean, they don't go to a public hearing. We don't do a big notice for it. What we are looking at are adopted guidelines and standards and best management practices to assign to that permit. But you are still held to those conditions. So if you violate them, there's, like I said earlier, you can still revoke the permit and stop that use versus when they're permitted by right. Primary residences. So again, all 9 of the residential zones require a house to be on site if you're going to have livestock. These amendments would potentially allow the AR3 and AR5 through the admin permit process to not have a house on site. And then the ag buildings, again, that's bringing in a non-residential use onto these residentially zoned properties for the AR3 and 5 with a use permit when there is not a residence on site. Private stables, amend that definition so that it can be more broadly used for shelter for all your livestock, not just your horses. And then the animal management plan, again, adopting that so we have enforceable standards to assign to the admin permit for the care and keeping of the animals. So cost of compliance. So this is the town side of it. There's always a private cost for, design or developing building plans and stuff, but for submitting it to the town for review, it starts at the core there in the dark spot. The administrative permits are $352.14. They are one time, it runs with the land. You don't renew these. So at a minimum, for vacant properties in the AR 3 and 5, you would get this administrative permit. From there, you decide, how do I want to shelter my livestock? Do I want to put them in a stable, in which case I can go just straight to building permit. I don't need any more use permits from planning. Or I actually want an ag building, either to store my equipment, food and all that kind of stuff, and the animals. Well, that's a use permit, and that would go to the planning commission. But if you knew at the very beginning you wanted both livestock and the ag building, you would just apply for that higher entitlement, the use permit, and we'll cover that all together. You don't have to do both of them if you're doing it at the same time.
So you don't do the 352?
You would just do the 880 if you knew you wanted both
Okay.
of those right off the bat.
Okay.
If you came to us today and say, I want livestock, and you came back next year after we were done and
Then
said,
it's
I want the
different,
building,
right.
it's a separate app.
Right.
Correct.
And again, these are for not having a house on site.
When there's not a house on site, correct. And then the last part is, of course, it doesn't matter what the zoning is. It doesn't matter if the zoning permits stables or ag buildings by right or with a use permit. These structures are still subject to California Building Code, so there will be building permits associated with it, right? That is not tied to the zoning. That's just California Building Code. So there will be expense for you to put together building plans and submit those to the building division, right? Permit cost. Depending on how large it is, what it's constructed of, you can get pre-manufactured, wood sheds, you can get pre-engineered metal buildings, or you could build it out of the ground yourself. There's ways to build structures that don't require architects and engineers. Plenty of houses are like that already. But you can also make it really fancy and complicated to where you do need those technical experts to help you with your plans, right? It can be very simple. It can be very
But
complicated.
it'd have to follow the WUI
Yes.
fire code.
Yes, that is a local building code amendment that all structures that are subject to building permit have to follow WUI.
Okay.
Yep. So I don't have, I'm trying to think of an example. The most cheap building permit we have for like those pre-manufactured wooden sheds is just shy of $200. It could be that simple. Or you can do this multi-thousand square foot wooden steel building, whatever it is, that you're going to build out of the ground that needed engineering for certain things because you have these oversized doorways, things like that, right? That could be real money. Yes, like thousands. Yes, sir.
On one of the sheds that you can go buy
Yeah.
at Costco.
Yeah.
If you get one over a certain size, more than 20 square feet, then that's
121 square feet, right, triggers.
That triggers.
Right. When you think about it practically, I don't know how much livestock and other stuff you can store in 120 square feet or less,
right, no.
right? So I think for the most part, we're talking much larger buildings, yeah, but you're right, you're right. Okay. So really, that's the presentation, is hitting, again, these are the highlights, you can see them in case you had any questions. So I open it up to council if you have questions of staff about any of these recommendations. And at the end of this, staff's recommendation is that you would have us move forward with these amendments as proposed, which means we go to the planning commission with the actual written text amendments, get their recommendation, and bring it back to you for introduction.
So I don't have a question, but I have a comment. This got so blown out of proportion and everything, and I know myself and another council person was a late evening getting phone calls, texts, what have you, and I gotta thank you for the work you did on putting this together and explaining it to us so we could get it out to the public and clear up all the misinformation that was out there. That was a huge help, and I know that it took away from your already busy day, and I really want to thank you for getting that done, because it was a huge help.
Thank you.
Questions for Susan?
That's pretty clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good job.
Cards.
Yes, first card from Art Collier.
Good evening, council. Thanks for allowing me to be here. I was sort of under the impression that this was affecting more than just land without houses on it. I think all these recommendations are perfectly reasonable. I'm a big goat advocate for for using grazing animals for helping to control the fire fuels in town and on lots from an acre to beyond. And I think the town, with its grazing festival that it has, and I think trying to promote the use of particularly small grazing livestock is really worthwhile, and I think it's great for the town image. I think this will help, and so I'm certainly in agreement with these regulations.
Thank you, Art.
Yeah, thank you.
Second card is John Romalia.
Good evening, council. It's quite interesting when I read the staff report on this. It didn't say what level of permits. There's 3 different prices for admin permits. There's 3 different prices for use permits. I looked at the range. Okay. I also looked at what the use permit required, such as title reports and much more detailed items, which concerned me a lot. I looked at a stable as being an ag building. So if you were going to have a stable, you were going to go through this conditional use section. I sent out a letter by email to multiple staff members and council, the way I was reading it. And I didn't get a detailed answer. I got, well, yes, you'll be able to do it. Concerned me a lot. One of the people that I sent this letter to asked me if they could put it online to get input. They put it online, okay? I would like to see the staff reports be a little more detailed so we never have this happen again. I am in support of the private stables being changed. I'm in support of the administrative permit. The one thing that was said, if you're going to have a stable, you're going to have at least one area to keep your feed in. It was mentioned that feed would require an ag building. Equipment storage, and that's another thing. It's not, what? Yeah,
That was not said. No, feed doesn't make an ag.
okay, feed doesn't, okay, they said if you wanted to store your feed, so thank you, that's a clarification. But I'm in support of it as long, as a stable is the administrative permit. To me and many other people, the staff report, there was a little bit of gray area in there. And in the future, I would like to see what level of use permit and what level of administrative permit, because there can be about a $3,000 range in there. Thank you.
Next card is Bob Powder.
Yeah, and I'll decline because that's really aimed at us. Thank you.
Adam Deep.
Deputy.
Deppy, sorry.
Evening, council. I really want to thank Susan for clearing up the residential part of it, if there is a permanent building. I do just have like 2 quick questions on what about a temporary, if someone is going to use someone like Art to come in on their AR3, AR5 for a temporary use, are they going to be susceptible to paying that
No.
$850 fee?
Go ahead, Susan. Yeah, no.
Come share the stage with you. Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot to mention, these amendments don't affect that 60-day grazing period that any property can use. Does that answer the question?
Perfect,
Okay.
thank you. And then my next question would be is, say you have property that's AR3 and you obtain the property next door, is that going to be susceptible to that kind of, just something to consider while you're going through that? I know it's a separate lot
And that's a very good question.
because,
You know what he's saying by that? We brought that up in our discussion before, because a lot of people are buying lots next to their homes. So you'll have a house there, but you have an adjacent piece of property that you own, even though the house isn't on that property.
And what's happening with that, even with people that like have an RV or a boat and they want to store it on the new piece of property, right now, the way we're looking at all that, unless you merge the lots, it's considered two separate lots, and the lot doesn't have a structure on it. So, and that's what gets, but that's certainly something we should probably
Yeah, 'cause
look
you're-
into, see if we can't be, I don't know if there's exceptions can be made to that, or something, because if you own both pieces of property, it's just silly that I can't park my boat on my property because I don't have a house on it. That's.
Yeah, and then going through all the headache of
and you may not
merging
wanna
and,
merge your lots for-
Even though you have a house there, next property right next to it.
I mean, you'd be there on site with
Right.
your animals. It's
Right.
not like the other ones where
Right.
could be
Right, no,
another county away.
And that's a great point, and I think we ought to look
So
at that.
I think after the clear up of the residential thing, those are my only questions that came out of that. And then as it goes through the process, I'm sure they will come out. My only one other concern is as it goes through the process, what other regulations is the planning commission going to put on if you put an ag building on? Are they going to make you do fire turnarounds down by the ag building? So what other things is this going to add on to property owners that just want to raise their animals? But now they're required to do major excavating to make sure they have a turnaround for
Well, the way it works,
fire department, all that
staff will
stuff.
develop the policy, and they'll bring it to us, or they'll take it to them, and when it comes to us, if they add things to it, other than what the staff has created, with everybody's input, we have the ability to say yes or no.
But Susan, it goes to all different agencies, right? When it goes,
So when we take in the use permits for something like an ag building, right, and we're trying to develop those conditions, we are pushing that application out to different departments,
Right.
engineering, building,
Right.
wastewater, to get those comments back. So before we ever went to hearing, you would know what kind of things they're asking for, so we can see, can we modify the project to make it feasible for you still, but meet the goals of what those recommendations are.
but
So
fire's going to
typically-
have their concerns, and fire's going to bring
absolutely.
their concerns forward.
Yes.
And I
But
don't
we
think
have the-
anybody here is going to argue with fire.
Right, so we have the opportunity to address those, modify before we ever get to hearing. It's not common by the time we get to hearing for commission to be making changes at that point, because we theoretically have hammered all those things out, and we have the opportunity to. Yes.
And that has happened. And there's many times that the applicant gets to come forward and negotiate. You know, okay, I see what you want. What if I did it from this side instead of this side, or would that work? And many times you can get things to work, so.
All right, thank you, council.
I have no other cards on this item.
Any other questions from council?
Can I
just want
clarify
direction.
one statement that was
Yes.
made? And it was about the stables required an admin permit. They do not. Only the livestock would. The stables are permitted by right, so you would go straight to building permit with those. Right? So I just want to clarify. Okay. That was it.
Thank you, Susan.
Stable decision.
So you're asking for direction to proceed to develop this as you presented.
And look at
Correct.
that- and
But I
look at
do
that
think
other-
that is a good point about
Right.
the abutting adjacent properties being used.
Right.
We'll see how we can work that in.
Right.
Cool, okay.
Yeah.
I'll move
Oh,
forward.
totally. I get it now. I get it. Yes.
Well, we're not voting
Oh,
on
we're
this
not
one.
there?
Oh, well, this is, I need consensus
Oh.
from the council so that we can actually formulate some standards.
Right. Because it's got to go.
Oh, so sorry.
If I may, I'd just like to ask one question.
You got to get to the mic.
When Susan, as part of her presentation, indicated the proposed animal management plan by resolution, I believe, what she didn't mention is how she, if she gets direction to proceed from you, how she intends to develop that and present it to whom? Probably the council, unless you're going to share it with the planning commission as well. And that's what you didn't explain, is that going to be part of the overall process, or is it a direct plan going to council and doesn't need the commission's input, which actually you probably want, quite frankly.
It's
but-
just a resolution with rules, right?
Right. And those
It's
are,
a resolution we can pass, and that's not a plan.
well, I mean, it's up to you folks and Susan, but what she's suggesting to you is that this resolution, by your adopting it on behalf of the community, sets standards, minimum standards, okay? And the standards can be enforced in that manner, I believe. But I just was questioning what you intend to do if you get direction to proceed. What's the process?
Al, you act like you've done this before.
That's something like a true former planning.
So the
Prior life.
intent would be to bring the entire packet to the commission for review, including the resolution. I'd want their recommendation or comments on it as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, the more opportunities for it to be heard at public hearings, to get the input, I welcome that.
But they touch
Totally
other
agree.
parts of the community. They
Yes,
input
yes.
Other people, so that's a good idea.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Susan, you did great. I love it.
We have consensus on that.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you.
Good job, thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
You're amazing. You really are.
Thank you. Will you swap me out, please? I'm still here.
Are you the next item?
I'm the next item,
Oh.
yeah.
So 6D, request for proposals for qualified consultant firms to complete a comprehensive update on the 1994 Town of Paradise General Plan.
Yes.
Susan?
Thank you, Mayor Crowder. Yes, so as mentioned, this is about getting the RFP for the update of the rest of the general plan out on the streets. So the 1994 general plan, it has the 7 mandatory elements that we're required to have. 2 of them we've updated since the fire. That's housing and safety, because they are statutorily bound by deadlines. So those 2 took us about 3 years to get those updated. They take a long time because the housing element has to be approved by HCD. Need I say more? And then the safety element had to go through Board of Forestry approval. The remaining 5 mandatory, we also expect to take about 3 years to get them all done as well. There's a lot of work, and the environmental review. The town also has one optional element in its general plan right now, and that's education and social services. So what the request is to update the 5 remaining mandatory elements, including updating the environmental review, and typically you're looking at EIRs for these. But also, we'd like to have conversations and collaboration about, are there ways we can combine elements? Are there suggestions on new elements maybe we didn't have before, like economic development that should have some goals and policies? And then also, it's mentioned in the RFP, we want them to utilize existing studies. We don't want to pay for more studies that, are just duplicating previous efforts. So things like the long-term recovery plan, things like the transportation master plan, utilizing stuff we already have. So that's our expectation. And then once the general plan's updated, to have them help us do the zoning updates that come after that, because that's another big heavy lift at the end. And then also, I'd like to get some feedback, right, both through the, stakeholders, public, through the consultants. Are there ways to maybe combine and condense the existing zoning regs to make them more user-friendly as well? So I just want to point these out because I'm sure you saw them in the RFP. These are different. So the state puts out a very brief 404-page general plan guideline book. And, yeah. And so these are some of you see these in the RFP because these are themes that are constantly touched on in the guidelines, weaving these ideas throughout your general plan. It doesn't mean that they are necessarily their own element, but you are touching on these within the element. So things, it talks about climate change, but it's very specific about greenhouse gas emissions. There's already assembly bills that require, right, that for state reductions and stuff like that. So some of this is just compliance with state law, but I wanted you to
add
know.
to it.
Exactly. I just wanted you to know where those terms were coming from. It's not pie in the sky kind of things. We're taking these things directly out of the state's guidelines and making sure that, we're having these conversations with our consultant.
But it's not going to change what we're doing right now. I mean, it's just stuff that
Yeah.
is going to be in the report.
Well, this, in the general plan, to make sure that we're
General plan,
talking,
right.
that we're talking about these kind of things.
right.
When it talks about sustainability, well, making sure that if we had some natural resource, we're not using it all up, and it even talks about public resources, that you're not doing so many things that you can't, your public resources can't support that. It's a different way to think of some of those terms of how they're getting there. But I just wanted you to know that's where that's coming from, is the state's guidelines. All right, financials. So we've been saving for this day for almost 30 years, and we're up to 2.45 million. And I'm estimating right now, granted we haven't really done this comprehensive thing in 30 years, probably in the ballpark of 1.5 to 2 million for this based on what it costs for the first 2 elements. But knowing that I'm also asking for a much bigger environmental document and the zoning updates afterwards. So that's the ballpark I'm estimating in. The work would happen over multiple fiscal years. Right now, that fund is replenishing itself at about $250,000 a year. It's a portion of development fees are put aside specifically to do the general plan update. So the hope is we get this done, we'll have money to do the next one, and then after that, that's where we're back to pinching pennies and collecting like $15,000 a year like we were before the fire.
So
But-
they mandate us doing this. but-
There's, not for the whole thing itself, the housing and the safety, yes.
Okay. But there's no funds coming from the state to help?
Oh,
with-
heavens, no.
Yeah, we wouldn't want that. No, we
No.
wouldn't want that. Okay.
So this was a wonderful thing that, staff in the early 90s put together this so that we have the funds right now to do this. It's coming out of a special pot that's all it can be used for.
Do you think it's in the $1.5 to $2 million over the next 3 years? And that's all of it, even the updates, to
That-
zoning and all?
That's my estimate. Again, I'm basing,
That is just $500,000 for a party,
right at the end, yes,
townwide.
yes.
Just like,
Just thinking. So staff's request of council would be concurrence to release that RFP as it was proposed in the packets. I'd love to push it out tomorrow or this week. That would get it back in front of you for contract award in August.
get it done.
And then questions?
I had,
The general plan.
I
Yes.
have one question.
Yes.
Where you mentioned that, let's see, where was it? About using existing studies where
Yes.
available and feasible. Would that include existing studies from those outside stakeholders or just studies
Oh,
that were done?
potentially, yes.
Like,
yes.
when you mentioned adding education and social services, I know the school district updates their LCAP plan and things like that on a
Absolutely.
regular basis.
Absolutely.
Okay.
When I worked on the safety and housing element, we did pull. I mean, we looked at stuff that we didn't publish and we didn't do, right? So it's very normal, correct.
Any other questions for Susan? Any cards?
I have no cards on this
I have
item.
a quick comment, if I may. Thank you. I think that when we're looking at updating our general plan, let's not forget to include the feasibility of our wastewater system, change in what our general plan is going to look like, and make sure it doesn't become a stepchild and get forgotten. I don't want it to get tied up in that 2-year or 3-year process, because I think if we can amend the EIR for the sewer system or wastewater system on its own, that's great. But I think when we're looking at the plan, the update of our general plan, let's make sure that we look at what it can be if we do have a functioning wastewater system, fire suppression and everything. So, thank you.
Okay.
I move approval?
Is it just concurrent?
No?
No, I'll second.
Motion by Bolin, seconded by Crowder. Councilmember Bolin.
Thanks, Susan. Aye.
Councilmember Colleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Lang.
Aye.
Councilmember Lasana is absent, and Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And that was 2025, resolution 2025. Oh, no, that's the next one. I'm sorry. Sorry.
You want to do next?
Trying to hurry. I'm trying to hurry.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
6E, consider adopting resolution number 2025-31, a resolution of the Town Council of Paradise awarding construction contract. Mark?
Thank you, Mayor Crowder. Good evening again, council. The next two out of the three next items are relating to awarding contracts for roadway rehabilitation efforts as a result of the 2018 Camp Fire. This contract under item 6E is relating to the on-system road rehab project for Clark Road. This was bid as a separate standalone single roadway corridor project because it is so unique from our other Paradise roads. Thank you for the mic. As well as in a commercial area. We've already gone through the noise variance process. The work will be done at night. We'd advertised the work after getting approval from the council a few months back. We had an engineer's estimate for the full road rehab effort of $6.5 million. We received a low bid of $6.1 million from Mountain Cascade, and then a second low bid from Knife River of $6.4 million. I will note that we received a bid protest and staff reviewed the bid protest about the low bidders' quality and responsiveness to the bid. We identified several deficiencies that were confirmed through this process, and staff is recommending rejecting the low bid and awarding to the second low bidder, Knife River Construction. We had several major issues as a result of the disadvantaged business enterprise commitment, Section 3 compliance, which is part of our funding stream requirements through HUD, as well as, most critically, the bidders list of subcontractors is also a major issue. So with that, staff has no issues in recommending award to the second low bidder, continuing the project delivery schedule as planned, scheduled for this summer. In the agenda item you have in front of you, there's a full outline of the original bid protest, staff analysis of the protest, and recommendation for award to the second low bidder. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions the council might have.
So you don't anticipate any protests to that?
No, at this point, when we open it up for award, we would hear from any other issues or disagreements, but the period for additional bid protests has passed.
Passed,
Yeah,
okay.
and I don't anticipate any sort of issue with awarding to the second low.
Okay, thank you. Your engineer's estimate was pretty close.
Yes, we are tracking still under, even the second item here. Our engineer's estimate was 6.5, and so all in, we'll be right there,
Yeah,
about
close.
6.5.
Good job.
Thank you.
So this is gonna be done at work, at night?
Correct.
I got a question about, I thought the Skyway, Upper Skyway project was gonna be night work.
For PG&E?
Yeah.
Yes, and so we do have a potential for some
That's happening
overlapping night work.
During the day, though.
What's that?
They're doing that during the day.
There, as far as PG&E's work on Upper Skyway above Wagstaff to Clark?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I know initially they were hoping to get some work done at night, and so I know there might have been some changes. I can get back to you on that, but I'm not.
Yeah, update everybody, because it was advertised that way. They have the detour signs up, but if you
Yep.
drive up there in the middle of the day, they get flagmen and you're stopped. And they have single lanes, it's not like
Yeah.
closed down.
I think significant portions of the work they're trying to optimize for a shorter period of time to be done at night.
Yeah, just let us know.
Yep. We'll also keep in our traffic control map up to date on what's being done at night versus daytime. Through all of our work, including Clark Road, done at night, during the day, emergency vehicles, evacuation, we're always going to be ready to get people
Do
out.
we, when we have these projects like this, do we like notify businesses in the area too?
When cons-
Because they have delivery trucks, I'm thinking about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have notification letters that get mailed to all properties, and we're also still doing the door hangers.
Cool, great, thanks.
Do we have any cards?
I have no cards on this item.
I move approval.
Second?
Motion by Bolin, seconded by Colleton. Councilmember Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Colleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Lang?
Aye.
Councilmember Lasana is absent, and Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Motion passes.
So 6F, consider adopting resolution number 2025-32. Mark?
Thank you, Mayor Crowder. This item relates to the abandonment of a public utility easement identified on Deodora Way. Two parcels included in this proposal. Any resident who has an easement recorded on their property and has a feeling that they would like to take advantage of the use of that property has an avenue to explore whether or not that's possible. We have an application, and we received an application for what's in front of you tonight from Roger and Brenda Green. They're seeking additional flexibility for their properties and necessitates the vacation of this public utility easement shown on the southern portion of their property lines. A 12-foot PUE was recorded against their property. I was looking for the year. I don't know if I have that. A long time ago. So with that, the process to confirm on whether or not an easement can be vacated is that the applicant reaches out to all the affected utilities. So that's Comcast, AT&T, PID, Town of Paradise, PG&E, to confirm whether or not there is any need for that easement to exist on this property. Included in your agenda packet are affirming responses from all of the utilities that these easements can be vacated on behalf of their utility. So with that, the Town of Paradise has reviewed the application, supports the abandonment of these easements, and we'd be glad to answer any other questions the council might have.
So the question is, I mean, I'm 100% for this, 1,000% for this. Why aren't we taking that easement all the way through all those properties out, and instead of making them all do this process?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know,
Gold star.
I guess workload management, no. I just am not sure about that
PID did the
process
same thing
to
on
kind of
Vista
do a-
Knolls.
What's that?
PID did the same thing in Vista Knolls.
Yeah.
They had one that it was abandoned, but everyone had to do it separately. Got to go through months of process to get it abandoned, and it just, I don't know. That seems kind of weird to me, that
Yeah.
we can't just abandon the whole thing, but.
The way the Streets and Highways Code is that it's, by the applicant, has to apply for it, receive responses from the utilities.
So that is a code?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay,
but
well, that's all
it-
I had to say. I
But
didn't
it's still
know
a
that.
reasonable question about, well, if these two parcels don't need the easement, I'm sure the remaining parcels
But we
don't
can't,
either.
as a town, step in and do it, all the lots?
No, for example, these, there's so much that goes in behind the scene, confirming the correct ownership, confirming the survey,
Okay.
and mapping of what the recorded documents are going to be onto the parcel.
Okay.
That shows the easement to be vacated. So all of that is hired and prepared by the applicant themselves.
Okay,
We did
thank
not
you.
prepare this exhibit.
All right. Any cards?
I have no cards on this item.
To that point though, could like, on any of the other properties this easement runs through, could there be a note attached to those, so whoever buys those, owns those, if they ever develop those, they know that there's an easement on your property, could be abandoned, here's the process. You know what I mean? Because people won't even know. I mean, they'll just see an easement, they won't
Yeah.
know it's not needed, they don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know, just a thought.
Okay.
I'd move approval.
Second.
Motion by Bullen, seconded by Colleton. Councilmember Bullen.
Aye.
Councilmember Colleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Lang.
Aye.
Councilmember Lasson is absent. Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Item 6G, consider adopting resolution number 2025-33. Mark?
All right, thank you, Mayor Crowder. Good evening one more time, council. This is the second pavement contract, rehabilitation contract award for the evening. This one is for our second version of the on-system road rehabilitation, and it does combine some other safety improvement program funds to deliver in response to the 2018 Camp Fire and putting our roads back to their pre-fire condition. So with that, the project in front of you advertised roads for rehab, including Billy Road, a portion of Skyway, Elliott, Pearson, and Bushman, here shown on the map in front of you. Our engineer's estimate for this project was $9.4 million. We received a low bid from All American Construction of $8.4 million. This project is nearly 100% funded. Well, it is 100% funded from non-town funds. It's 75.25% through the Emergency Relief Program, and then we have CDBG DR funds to use as our match. And I also mentioned the safety funds on this project as well. So with that, we've worked with All American in the past, have no reservations in recommending award, have reviewed all of their submittals similar to the previous item, and really excited to get this done, including the Phase 2 work from Knife River's work of last year that's ongoing right now. And these three contracts, one, you awarded a contract, I believe, a month or so ago to DeSilva Gates, and the two tonight, we're looking at 33.7 miles being paved in the calendar year 2025.
Have you tried getting through town?
Yes, it's a
Oh,
lot.
my goodness.
Yeah.
That was my question, are they gonna do all these at the same time?
Well, we'll work through a schedule, and again, balancing all the needs and making sure people can still get to where they need to go. But it's a lot of work. It's
exciting. It's exciting.
It is.
It's just, we just need to, anything we can do to, it is frustrating sometimes. Let me just
Yep.
say that. If you're late to a meeting, it's many times because of,
Yep.
I have a question, Mark. When
Yes.
when you guys are coordinating projects, does that include coordination with PG&E and their projects on the roads and PID, like all of the different utilities?
Yes, so we have ongoing monthly utility coordination meetings. We receive their KMZ files for Google Earth to post on our traffic control maps. Our teams are always reaching out and inviting these utilities to our weekly contractor meetings. We work in advance for scheduling and pre-jobs and kickoffs, and one of the factors is coordination with USA markings. It's very difficult to get so many miles done and marked in advance of this work. So trying to pace it out as much as we can to deliver the ultimate goal, to stay to our commitment to the community, that outside of major capital projects where you have other funding like road widening on Pence and Skyway and Neal, to have all of our paving done by the end of 2026.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Okay,
Come to the mic. Come to the mic.
real simple. We're gonna have Pence closed down. Are we gonna make sure that they don't take Clark and Skyway at the same time?
No,
I mean, so we have all three blocked off.
maybe.
That's not true.
Yeah, no,
That's not true.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
We're
we
not-
need
No,
to,
no one said Pence is
We
going at
are.
the same time.
yep.
Don't stir it up.
Question as well. Bill Sherritt, Paradise Unified School District. We will be rebuilding Paradise Elementary School between June and July of next year. So I need to make sure we coordinate with our contractor to make sure that they are allowed into that property on Pearson Road.
Next year you're doing it, or
We're
this
starting
year?
in June, be finished in July of next year.
Okay.
Yeah, through all of our work, our goal is to keep access to property owners, businesses, school district properties at all times through construction. If there's any sort of peak issue of work where a driveway needs to be closed, we'll be in direct coordination with you and your contractor.
I know we talked before, I just want to make sure that that happens, so, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, is there any, I know this is a sore subject, poles coming down, is there any guideline that they gotta be down before the roads go in, or anything? Is that, no?
No, the big factor there, just for everyone in the room, is when PG&E finishes underground, are we talking about naked poles or poles with still telecoms on it?
I would take the unnaked ones, but I mean, yeah, the ones that are just sticking up in the air and nothing on them, they're.
Yeah, so if you see those, please feel free to let me know. We've been giving those to PG&E, and they've been assembling enough to get through a productive day to take poles down. It's on them, and I'm glad to coordinate. I know we had some come down, but as the telecoms come off, it is much delayed behind the electric because their distribution system does not match electric. So let's say, a portion of Pence is completely clear for electric, and it would seem like the whole corridor is ready, but maybe the feed that allows electric to come off earlier is different from telecoms, and so telecoms needs to stay longer. Regardless, though, if we see naked poles where there's just a wooden pole standing, please feel free to let me know. I'll check in again with PG&E. It's been a few weeks or a few months probably since we've talked on this, and they've had some staff turnover who was leading the pole removal project.
So seriously, it's okay if we contact you with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Please
okay.
do. Yeah.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Some of the telecom, like Comcast and AT&T, so once they got over their argument a 3 years ago, they didn't put in the sweeps in to connect to the boxes. So that's what different subcontractors are out there now, tearing up roads just so before they can even pull those wires, right? And so I'm just curious because are they telling you that they're gonna have all of those connections from done so that we can pay?
Yeah, so I can
Come and dig up roads.
I can speak to that question for those in the room that don't know the context. For a period of time, PG&E was undergrounding Paradise, and telecoms at that point were not. But mainline conduit was put in for everyone, just in case everyone wanted to underground. At this point, there was a moment where everyone wants to underground. And so there was 10 miles of road, public roads, that requires the laterals and sweeps, as you said, to be caught up where, the main undergrounding work by PG&E is done and telecoms have to come back and do the sweeps and the laterals. So only 10 miles of that has to have that go back for those two telecom companies to do that work. But everything moving forward after that agreement was made, which again was years ago, has all of it in one interval, but there's still some catch-up work for that final 10 miles.
Okay, so there's still some of that's being done.
Yes.
I know it's being done.
Correct.
But you're confident that that's all going to get done?
Oh, yeah, we would not be awarding and paving these roads at all if we weren't confident that,
You see them out there, and,
Yep.
oh, oops.
yeah, no, we don't want that.
No cards? No cards,
No cards.
move approval.
Second.
Motion by Bolin, seconded by Colleton. Councilmember Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Colleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Lang?
Aye.
Councilmember Lasson is absent, and Mayor Carter.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Item 6H, after presentation, review and file the financial information provided by staff. Amy?
Good afternoon, council. Normally I'm saying good evening because it's still dark outside, but you know, I see the light. So I hope you do too in this really long packet. So what I am giving you tonight is having to do with Mark and all of his lovely projects. So as you know, the budget was put together in May and presented in June and passed in July. Mark's projects shuffle and turn and have different funding sources as we progress through the year. And these are two of the CIP projects that he has augmented since then. So they're CIP, they're both for Row Road. One's phase 1, one is phase 2. So these are not general fund, they're CBDDR, and then I believe another one is grant funded. So, you know, the revenues are there and for the expenses, so it's an even 1-for-1. So what I'm asking for is for you guys to approve these changes in our budget this evening.
H.
H. So one is for
So it's
approximately 58,000 and the other one's for approximately 1.1. These are just budget
So we're
projections.
taking it in from grants, we're paying it out.
Correct.
Simple.
Do I hear a motion?
Any, no cards?
I have no cards on this item.
I move approval.
I'll second it.
Motion by Bolin, seconded by Colleton. Councilmember Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Colleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Lang?
Aye.
Councilmember Lasson is absent. Mayor Crowder?
Aye.
Motion
All be
passes.
so easy.
6I, following the town council's review of the actuarial valuation of retiree health benefits. Amy?
So good evening again, afternoon. Anytime there's a proposal for changes in the benefits for health and welfare for the post-employment, there is an actuarial that should be done. That's called the GASB 75. So we've ran that report, and Roger is here virtually to present the report.
Roger, can you hear us? You're on mute.
There we go. Apologies, my meeting was hidden by the presentation. Okay, so, Amy, do you have the presentation ready, or should I share my screen?
Whatever is most convenient for you. You can share your screen.
I'll just go ahead and share my screen, that's probably easiest.
Great, thank you.
There it is.
Okay. All right, here we go. Okay, so we're going to talk about the effect of benefit changes on the liability. And I'll explain what liability is in just a second here. Okay, so we'll talk about the benefit change, we'll talk about GASB 75, what that means, the effect of the change on liability, related measures, the change on future benefit payments, which is kind of, your direct pocketbook effect, and then taking the questions that you have. So dive in. So there's a proposed benefit change as a result of bargaining with the 5 employee groups. The town is going to be changing the proposed subsidy. And so we've listed those proposed subsidy amounts. These are caps. These are the maximum amount that the town will contribute towards retiree healthcare. This is for retirees only. well, this presentation's for retirees, I'll put it that way. The subsidies will increase with the medical trend after these go into effect. So annually, they'll increase so that they remain equal to 80% of the pre-Medicare PERS gold rates. Okay, so any questions about that so far? Okay, I will move on. So we're talking about retirees here. These are pre-Medicare retirees. Once they are Medicare, they go into Medicare plans. Okay, GASB 75. So what we did is we produced a GASB 75 under current benefits, and then we produced the GASB 75 under these changes to the benefits so that you can see what the difference is. So GASB 75 is a governmental accounting standards board statement that applies the measurement of the liability of retiree health benefits. Technically, it's all benefits other than pensions, and so hence you'll sometimes hear the term OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits other than pension. And the liability for that is called the total OPEB liability. One way to think of the liability is that it's the amount you need to have in a trust fund today, earning interest at a given rate to cover all of the promised health care for everybody in your plan that's in it today. It does not include amounts for employees who are not eligible yet for, well, actually it does, but if employees aren't eligible for benefits and they terminate, they won't get the benefits. It does not include amounts for employees who have not been hired yet, so it's not a projection of future employment. Okay. How's everyone feel about that?
Great, yeah. Great.
Okay, great. Just give them a little background on what we're measuring and why. Okay, so now we're getting into the actuarial numbers. So we talked about the total OPEB liability, so that's the amount you need to have in the trust fund to cover everything you promised in healthcare. We did put in the present value of future normal costs and the total present value of future benefits, and these include, so the OPEB liability is like a snapshot in time as of today. And if we look at total present value of future benefits, it's not required to be measured by GASB 75, but we put it in our reports because CalPERS likes to see it and other people like to see it. So this looks at what if you had to pay out everybody in the plan who's not even eligible yet. So you'll see that there was a large increase, $6 million increase in the total OPEB liability. That's what goes in your books. The net OPEB liability is removing what you have in trust. So you have $281,000 or $282,000 in trust right now, and you've been starting to build that up. So that offsets the total OPEB liability. That amount doesn't change. Changing the benefits doesn't change what you have in the trust, so that stayed the same. But your net OPEB liability, again, because that's a small amount of trust, doesn't change much either. So again, you're seeing a $6 million increase. The expense. This is the next step. So your change in OPEB liability from year to year doesn't hit the books all at once. Because of GASB rules and accounting rules, you're allowed to amortize some of those changes over time. However, a change in benefits is not allowed to be amortized over time. So you're going to have a hit to your expense, which goes into your income statement this year. So you're going to have a $6 million hit to your expense coming up next fiscal year. Fortunately, not much we can do about that. The other item we showed is the actuarially determined contribution, and you're not contributing at the actuarially determined contribution at this time. There's not really any penalty for it, but if you were to try to contribute an annual amount to build your trust up to 100% over like a 20-year period, that's what you have to put in annually, and you'll see that also took a big jump.
And what's that number, 2.7 million?
Yeah, so we were recommending that you contribute 500.6 and round it up. Now we're recommending that you contribute 2.8. If you don't contribute that amount, again, there's no penalty, it just means you have less in your trust fund. It also means that we're not allowed to use a higher discount rate. The discount rate is the interest rate that we use to discount present payments or future payments back to the present. And the higher your discount rate, the lower your liability. So GASB says that if you are contributing on a regular basis to your trust fund, that you can use the interest rate that those funds are expected to earn. And since they're an investment fund, they're expected to earn a higher interest rate than money just sitting in your general account. So we can use a higher discount rate if the liability is lower, which increases the amount you need to contribute. I don't know if that's relevant to this discussion, because I don't think we're actually discussing your contribution policy tonight, but.
So we're not contributing, bottom line, we're not contributing, we're investing.
Well, we have our yearly payments because we're pay as we go, but all of this information goes on our financial statements as we progress through the year. So there are options where you can invest, and it would go into, say, a trust, and it would reduce all of these items, because this is kind of a look ahead saying, if you close the doors, how much would we still be on the hook for? How much would we have to pay out? That's kind of how this liability goes. If you remember, before we didn't have to do this report many years ago, and now the state has said, well, you're on the hook for these. These are benefits that you promised.
Right, and what triggered this increase is the negotiations we just went through.
Predominantly, so I believe the last year it was done was 22. And so in order for us to proceed with PERS, we have to present this GASB 75 as well.
Okay.
So there's been a change in employee population as well as the rates.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Do you have another slide?
All right. So the next slide shows kind of what's coming out of your pocket. And that's the benefits that you pay each year for the retirees. So under the current plan in the fiscal year into June 30th, 2026, which is the upcoming fiscal year, you would have paid $917,336. Under the new proposed benefits, you're paying just over $1 million. So it's not a huge increase when you look at it like that for the next year. But that increase grows, and that's what the chart on the right there shows. Is the orange is current, and then blue is the additional amount. So you can see that what you're going to have to pay does grow fairly rapidly. And that's because the current benefit plan was capped, and the new benefit plan increases with the expected change in healthcare rates, which is increasing right now at about 7-8% a year on average.
And they're also speculating how long people are living as far as retirees and what that would look like as well. So there's a lot of speculation that goes into this long-term report. Correct, Roger?
That's correct. Yeah, we factor in mortality, we factor in retirements and withdrawals, the increase in healthcare costs. Like we mentioned the interest rate already. This is just your current population, though, again, so it doesn't include future employees that you may hire.
And in case you can't see, the last item was year 2047, so we're doing quite a long look ahead. Any questions on this slide?
No.
Next slide, please.
So what do we have to do, just accept this report?
Correct. So what we're looking for is following this review of the actuarial evaluation, staff recommends the council accept and file the report as presented.
Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, I'll move approval. Accept the report as submitted.
I'll second. I mean, we got to do it. I mean, there's not,
No, we have to
it's
do
not like, we can't argue about it, right? Yeah.
I mean, mortality and and number of
Well, I
employees
thought we
and the
weren't getting
actual
healthier. I
rates.
thought we were getting less healthy. but-
Right.
Motion by Colleton, seconded by Bolin. Councilmember Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Colleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Lang?
Aye.
Councilmember Lasana is absent, and Mayor Crowder.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Amy.
you, Roger.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 7, 7A, I don't believe we have any council-initiated agenda items. So council reports. Greg?
Well, you had initiated agenda item or?
What's that?
Oh, future, never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing that I went to that need to be brought up. Everything went well, and so, anyway, made all my meetings, except for Susan's. She keeps canceling them, but just kidding.
Heidi?
I think this last month was probably one of the busiest months. So we had a lot of our alternatives analysis meetings and our sewer committee meetings. So that was thrilling. I learned a lot more than I ever cared to about some of these processes, but it actually is. It really is informative and has given us a little bit of perspective. So I'm glad that we're able to be a part of that. I was able to attend the Paradise Unified School Board meeting. Was a part of the Rotary float in the Gold Nugget Days in the rain, which was lovely. Then I was able to attend the tree giveaway at Hope Plaza, which was kind of fun. I didn't think they would go that quickly, but I bet it was about 30, 40 minutes and they were all gone. So that was a success, and it's nice to see that space utilized. I look forward to seeing that space developed and be representative and be a part of the community. And then we had our first Paradise Unified School District liaison meeting with the town, and I think that was a good start, and so hopefully we'll continue to build a relationship and work together. And then last but not least, the mayor and I went to Washington, D.C. Last week for a couple of very, very long days, along with town staff, with the town manager and Colette and Mark. And You represented. You're welcome. It was a very, very exciting experience. I'd never been to D.C., so that was pretty cool in itself, just to be in the presence of that depth of history and where all of those weighted decisions are made that affect us even here in Paradise. And I think it was optimistic, and it was very, very productive, and I look forward to hearing back from the many people that we spoke to. And overall, I was very impressed that just little old Paradise could roll up in DC and get the undivided attention from that many people for at least a 30-minute meeting. And they were, for the most part, all super engaged and pretty much knew who we were and knew why we were there. And we just filled in the details and made, specific requests. And so I think it was well worth our time and lack of sleep. Thank you.
Well, Ron and I did interviews for Planning Commission and Measure V Committee, and Measure V Committee we're advertising again for people who are interested, want to get involved in that. And I think that's about all. And I showed up here tonight.
Well, I won't go into a lot of the DC trip, but I was really excited that we got to meet with the Director of White House Staff directly, Intergovernmental Affairs, direct to President Trump, and we spent a good half hour with her, and then got a tour of the library and everything, which was cool. We got to meet with, at least Heidi and I did, and the other group had another meeting. We got to meet with Ambassador Greer, who's our trade ambassador, and that was nice, and Heidi knew him before, so it was really cool. It was a great trip, other than the 4.5-hour delay at the airport coming home, and we weren't sure we were going to get home that day, but we did manage, but it was 2:30 in the morning when we finally got home. It was my third time I got to attend the Superior Court Leadership Lunch, which they selected half dozen students from the high school, and we got to hear their plans for the future, and we talked a little bit about Paradise. Our chief was there, Chief Reinbold, with us, and it's kind of a fun event every year. As Heidi was saying, we were in a whole lot of sewer meetings, and then on top of that, we also had contract negotiations, 3 and 4 in a day, a couple times a week. So that's been a challenge, and I'm glad that's finished. And I also went to the Hope Plaza, and like Heidi said, those trees were gone quick. It was supposed to be like a 4 or 5 hour event, and they didn't make it an hour. So that's pretty well what I did. So future agenda items. I have one that kind of connects with Greg's, but I'm going to let Greg go ahead and.
I'd just like to see staff come back with some proposal on the home buyers. There's just some things that I don't think are being, not that our staff isn't doing it, but things that home buyers don't know when they buy homes. There's things that they're buying them, they're not understanding what they're buying and who produced what they're buying and what their recourses are and different things. So I'd just like staff to come back with that and give us some proposals on maybe some ordinances that we get disclosure, full disclosure of what's happening with the home buying up here.
And then kind of to piggyback on that and be in the same line, I want to propose that we're going to start requiring home inspections, because a lot of these builders that are building under owner-builder, there's no warranty on these houses, unless it's written in the contract. And people don't realize that, and people don't realize what they're getting, and I'm hearing a lot of complaints about cosmetic work, which is not part of our job to correct cosmetic work. So I'd just like to have a home inspection done so people can look at whatever's on that report and either accept it or not, but at least they know what they're getting. So however we want to do that.
I want to add something on the agenda. I want to have a conversation about having an official Town of Paradise State of the Town event free to the citizenry. We used to do that every year. I wanted to have a conversation here, see if we have consensus to where we do that again.
Okay, so with that, Heidi, anything from, okay. Town manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things that haven't been mentioned. One is that did meet with Mayor and Councilmember Lasan as our fire contract negotiating ad hoc committee. And so that committee met, and we will have a proposal to extend our relationship with CAL FIRE that will come up at the June 10th meeting. And so that is coming forward. And then Councilmember Bolin and Colleton are serving as an separate ad hoc committee for our town facilities, looking at developing priorities on how we're going to restore some of our facilities that were lost in the fire. And so those two efforts are going forward. several wastewater meetings and employee group meetings, as mentioned already, over the last month, been a very busy month. And then our advocacy trip, I would just add two things. One is that the mayor and Councilmember Lang did an excellent job as the face of this community in front of those leaders in Washington. And I do want to call attention to our staff members, Mark and Colette, who produced very professional collateral materials that were left behind, and all of those offices really represented the town well. So it's important to make sure that they're thanked for that work. So that's it.
So, Community Development Director, Susan.
Thank you. Just a brief update about some projects that are rolling through community development right now. We had plans submitted for a new 2,400 square foot contractor office up where the old Genie's was at Rocky and Skyway for one of our builders. So he's rebuilding his office facility there. The SDA Church and the Community Center are about this close to final. Looks like they both got some septic stuff to finish up, but they look amazing. We are doing design review right now, so aesthetics for rebuild over at the public pool. When you're looking at it, over on the left-hand side, there was like an office and bathroom building that burned down, so they're coming back to rebuild that, so we're taking a look at that. And then signage for a new Italian restaurant where the old Celestino's was at Elliott and Skyway. And then Elliott and Skyway where the old Celestino's Pizza was, right at the corner, in front of the mini storage. Yeah, it's existing. Yeah, so we're looking at signage. And then last Saturday was the town's tire amnesty event at NRWS where they collected 956 tires. When we do those events, we do it for the whole Upper Ridge. I know it's like for as many households as came through, that was equivalent to almost 12 tires per visitor. But it also included Magalia, so it's not necessarily, for the lots here. And then just an update for facilities. Animal Control's new building was supposed to have flooring scheduled for delivery this week, and the cat condos were coming this week, so. They renewed their permit, but that's been it. The one up, up by Kmart, yeah. Mm-hmm. I know.
So Susan, a question. There was supposed to be an Italian restaurant that was going to go in. It is.
Yes. Nothing new. Okay. I'm guessing it because we haven't heard anything back from when they first came by.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.